Welcome everyone to episode 2 of The Scoop, your go-to resource to cut through the noise of all the transfer rumors about Juventus and get a little dose of truth of what's really happening behind the scenes. My name is Zach, and I'm joined here again by Frederic. And Frederic, let's just start with, and I think it bears repeating that we start with, why anyone should listen to us when it comes to transfer rumors.
Well, due to the simple fact that I have some people within the internal Juventus dynamics that are ready to divulge some more or less sensitive information with us, and then I'm happy to share with you and our listeners.
Well, we really appreciate it. And those who tuned into the Turn Giants podcast throughout the year knows that we have benefited from this information. Well, during our last episode, we focused more so on the management and coaching side rumors. Today, we're going to focus almost exclusively on the player side. The striker position, there's definitely been some jockeying in the rumors. We're going to talk about information with regards to contract extensions, as well as some general players moving in and out. So without further ado, let's jump into it. We're starting with the forwards, a topic that we covered last time, didn't we, Frederic? But there's been some movement on these folks, hasn't there?
There's been a little bit of movement in the sense that Dusan, which was an ice cold for me last time, moved up to cold. Why is that? Because his manager basically made a phone call to our new director with the name of Comoli and asked him if there was negotiation room to maybe extend and dilute his contract. But I know for a fact that Comoli is not a fan of Vlahovic and the salary that Vlahovic entails and weighs on our balance sheet. So a bit more positivity, if you could call it that, but not a lot of movement in the direction that some people might wish for. I hope not, because Vlahovic, to me, is not an added value.
Well, let's move to Victor Osimhen. Last time he was ice cold, and he hasn't changed at all, has he?
He hasn't changed, and he has some offers out of the desert, which are very lucrative, and I expect him to go for that.
Last time, Victor Gyökeres was really hot, but that's not the case anymore, is it?
It isn't. It's still Gyökeres has moved on to the cooler side of things. And that is because our next person in the lineup with the name of Jonathan David has also moved up. He has gone to basically very well hot because we are close to signing him.
Close to how close? What does close mean in this regard? Because I know a lot of folks, a lot of fans, Juventus fans are actually excited about him. So how close is close?
We have an agreement with his management concerning the salarial discussion of his contract, but we also now have learned that Juventus for him is the priority of all the offers he received as to appeal and the wish to play for Juventus. So I think that's a very, very positive outcome, very, very good turn of things. And the fact that he's, transfer free after this period is also something to keep in mind with our new management. So
do you think Comoli's French connection, shall we say, influence this at all?
I know for a fact that Comoli is an admirer of David as a whole, but the fact that our former boss, chef, Mr. Giuntoli, started all this, but then let the path a bit on how shall I put it? He didn't proceed as much as we liked him to. I think Comoli took advantage of that and restarted the negotiations with the approval of Alcan and Chiellini. But all these things I have to mention will be a symbiotic cooperation between our new sporting director and Comoli, and that's a demand from Alcan. So I think we'll see proper movement after our new sporting director will be announced.
Now, I'm excited to move to the new name on the list. So there hasn't been any new movement on Retegui or Højlund, right? They're both on the cooler side?
Yeah, still are. Thank God.
Awesome. Well, let's go to the new name on the list. A recent a Champions League winner, Gonzalo Ramos. Why is he on the list, and what are we looking forward to here?
He is on the list because he was on Kamoli's list a couple of years ago, but due to the fact that salary-wise and transfer-wise, he's a bit of an expensive player. Our friend Kamoli took the lead with, again, the approval of Alcon and Chiellini at this point, I think, and also maybe the bit of approval of our new sporting director behind the scenes, non-official, because PSG has let Gonzalo Ramos know that he can leave, or that there's an option like we have with Kolomuani to loan him with an option to buy, or maybe with a purchase that needs to be finalized. So I think if you look at Gonzalo Ramos as a player, I think he could very well be a very good resource for us, depending, however, on the cost and what the player wants and searches for in the definition of his further career. So, but it's something to keep in mind of.
Yeah, considering those factors, what temperature would you apply to him coming to Juventus?
I'd give him warm because he's a Kamoli transfer in all respects.
So we take a step back and we look at forwards. Obviously, a position that was really a pain point for us before Kolomuani joined. Our current most likely strikers. We're looking at Jay David and Gonzalo Ramos. Are we looking for, how likely would this be our striker pair or our striker options come next season?
I think with Jonathan David, we can be pretty sure that he'll join. I'm not one to say for sure because it's a transfer window, anything can happen. And Gonzalo Ramos is something to keep warm and to see what the opinions of our new sporting director will be. But I think there's something there because we're in talks with PSG. We'll talk about that a bit later. So there's definitely a link and a trail there, and something that's been missing in our team because Gonzalo Ramos is a fairly big striker, but he's also technical and he can score a goal or two. So he's the opposite of Vlahovic, I think. So a well-needed addition.
All right, let's move on from forwards and transfers, really, and talk about contract extensions. We've got two players in McKennie and Pensoglio whose contract expires a year from now. And we got two players, Yildiz and Gatti, who I know there's been some rumors with regards to extensions. So why don't you walk us through these, starting with McKennie's potential for contract extensions?
Of course. Now, I'd like to speak a bit globally now and not individually because there's been some dialogue within Juventus and where Alcon demanded that, especially about contract extensions, that there needs to be some sort of cohesion between our new sporting director, our general director, in terms of to move forward. So it's not like we're actively pursuing anything. But I can tell you now that the Weston McKennie part, for me, is now room temperature. Also due to the fact that Tudor values him a lot as a player, but we are not so sure that Tudor will be our coach in August. So let's see how that evolves. And the same could be said for Pensoglio with a little bit of an nuance there because as opposed to just to go ahead by Kamoli, Chiellini has asked for to find a role for Pensoglio after his active career within Juventus. There's been talk about team manager or something like that. So that could very well happen because Pensoglio has been part of our furniture like the last couple of years. So I can see that happening.
And I think, and I would love to see that to be. And so this is one thing, not his extension as much as his continued role in the team that I'm gonna definitely watch like a hawk because I would love to keep him involved. I think the real big name on the list is Kenan Yildiz, who's next up. These rumors popped up recently. How excited should we be about a potential extension for him?
We should be very excited. I mean, from the part of Juventus, because this was the first thing that Comoli did even before he was officially appointed to break open this contract, extend Yıldız's contract, give him a even more central role within the team, and basically make use of the talent that he has. So we contacted his new manager, Jorge Mendes, who's not negative about an extension, but there will be some things that need to be submitted into his contract. But Yildiz is happy, looks forward to the new season. But I think, and I can understand the player and the manager as well, they want some clarity about the new objectives that Juve will set themselves to, as will the new sporting director and possibly the new coach. But it's something waiting to happen. They want to break open his contract until 2030, if I'm not mistaken. With because in Spain it's very general, but in Italy it isn't, with a buyout clause, a very high one, on the request of Jorge Mendes. And there's rumors, it's nothing that's been confirmed by my sources, but rumors suggest it should amount to a buyout clause of 220 million euros, which is
Well,
a lot, I think.
yeah, I mean it's definitely one that'll turn some most teams off from trying to pry him from our grasp, and I think we appreciate that because we don't want to lose him. Let's move on to Gatti. I think you were the one who said that there were some talks or preliminary talks a while ago, but those have kind of cooled down in at least in the immediacy, correct?
Yeah, true. Because of the fact, like I said in our previous scoop episode, not being known what the board will look like, and what our sporting director or our new coach, for that matter, would wish. And when those rumors came out, Napoli made it very clear that they are very interested in acquiring Federico Gatti. I do not know Gatti's stance on the matter, but also that has been parked until the arrival of our new sporting director.
Which I mean, we're kind of being a broken record on. We don't know who the coach is, we don't know who the sporting director is, and so a lot of this stuff is on hold.
True, and also maybe a general bit. I know this is very frustrating for the Juve fans because I've been reading around today. Hey, the transfer window officially started. We ain't doing shit. Blah 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 blah. This is very normal, and this is also a direct order from Alcon. He wants our front office and the management side of things to be firmly settled, firmly cemented, with a clear structure, a clear outline, and a clear task division before we move into negotiating big deals or getting players. So I think that's to me, a very intelligent move, and I know we're impatient as supporters as we should be, but I think this is an intelligent approach to how we should begin the new season, in my opinion.
Well, even with that in mind, though, we are going to talk a little bit about potential player movement. We've got 5 names on the list here. Let's start with 6'5", 198 centimeter, 18-year-old Giovanni Leone from Parma. What are the chances that we're going to scoop up this highly sought after center back talent?
I'd say room temperature. And why do I say this? Because every team and their mother wants him now. Where last week it was pretty limited to Italy only, but now I've been hearing talk about Bayern Munich, the company being a huge admirer of him. And that's just facts. If there are big teams that are coming with a whole pile of money with more appeal than Serie A, it's going to be difficult. Also, Milan have entered the race. Apparently, call was made by Allegri himself to the manager of Leone. So I'm not so sure, but we'll see. Keep an eye on it.
All right, well, let's move on to another name. Maybe a name people aren't as familiar with is Maxime de Kuiper. He was the starting left back for Club Brugge and did start against Juventus when we played back in January. Why is his name on the list?
His name is on the list because he, in my opinion, is an awesome player with a lot of potential, is a very unique player in terms of skill asset, aggressiveness, and technical awareness, and has a huge room for potential to develop yet. And in that respect, he's a Komoli transfer target because Komoli likes players he can develop with a lot of room for potential. And there have been some small talks with him and his management. And also the fact, I know for a fact that Maxime de Kuiper reached out to certain Belgian players who are playing in Italy at this moment, and who are all very lyrical and very positive about Italy. So there is something that's going on right there. Yeah. So I'd give him, in terms of temperature,
Mm-hmm.
I'd give him hot for now because it is a position that we definitely need to fill in as well.
Alrighty, it's exciting to see. And again, if y'all are wondering who this guy is, go back and watch, albeit a boring draw between Juventus and Club Brugge back in January. All right, the next name on the list. It would not be a summer if we didn't mention Domenico Berardi. Is this the year?
This is most definitely not the year. Ice, ice, baby. Thank God. We wanted to put Gilardino there as well, but rumor has it that he's been retired, so we're not. But I mean, no, seriously. I have heard nothing, thankfully. So let's hope that we can pass another summer by dodging that bullet.
All right, let's transition from a couple players maybe coming in to a couple players that are garnering interest from other teams. You, in I think an earlier episode of Turn Giants, actually mentioned that Mangula was garnering some interest. Where do we stand on him leaving?
We stand on him leaving, and temperature-wise, room temperature. Why is that? Because Chiellini and Comoli made it very clear that they see potential in him, and if he was to leave, I think we are looking at a loan move rather than a permanent move at this point. But again, let's wait for our new sporting director, who we should announce end of this week or at least the beginning of next week, I feel. So anything goes for Sammy.
But if Chiellini and Comoli want him to stay, but correct me if I'm wrong. There's a lot of teams interested in his services beyond simply a loan. Correct?
There's a lot of teams interested with a nice paycheck as well. Nothing earth shocking, but a good payout sum. And he made it also very clear that he wants to play more. So that is another thing that could basically influence his decision to leave Juventus. So we'll see what happens there, but I can only imagine that Comoli already talked to him or his management, and let's see what our new sporting director will have to say about the matter.
So the last player we're going to talk about today is a name that I was surprised is on this list. Michele Di Gregorio. Why is he here?
Yeah, I think this is a scoop because I haven't read anything anywhere, but there have been several teams.
Wait. Are you saying you have a scoop on the scoop?
I have a scoop on the scoop on the scoop.
That's the point of this,
scoops.
right? So big scoop, Michele Di Gregorio. What's the story here?
He has gotten several offers. Well, let's not say official offers yet, but his manager was in talks with Comoli, saying that, listen, team A, B, and C contacted me about the situation of Michele, and where do you stand on this? So this is something that is very, very out of the blue, so to speak. But also it isn't, because Michele Di Gregorio, my personal standpoint about him, I think we could find better keepers than him. That's beside the point. But the fact remains that Di Gregorio was, in all effects, a Giuntoli transfer. And Comoli made it very clear that he wants to go scorched earth with everything that happened in the past, wants to set up something new in accordance with, of course, Chiellini, the new sporting director, and such. So if your manager calls your new general director, like his first day on the job, saying, hey, I'm this and this manager, we got some offers, what are you going to do about it? I don't think that bodes well with a person like Comoli. So let's see what happens there.
But it's still with both Mbangula and Di Gregorio, it seems like it's early phases, and of course, pending the appointment of the sporting director, which you said could happen pretty soon. Now, we didn't specifically have it here, but with such an impending appointment, who should Juventus fans expect to be that sporting director?
I still expect it to be a role that's going to be devised in between Tognozzi, Massara, and maybe Silva. I know there's a lot of talk going on at this point right now, and from what I hear, there's a meeting scheduled tomorrow with Alcon, where he wants to give some more feedback about the structure or the positions that need to be filled at this point. So it could well be that we could have two sporting directors. I wouldn't rule it out. But it's going to be like a battle between Tognozzi, Massara, and Silva. And Silva is somebody that Comoli appreciates very, very much.
Alrighty. Well, that brings us to the end of this episode of The Scoop. We will be recording again later this week to bring you more updated information about anything that's going on behind the scenes with regarding Juventus management, coaching, and player transfers in and out. Last off, before we close, want to thank you, Frederic.
Thank you.
Your contribution and information to this. I want to thank all the listeners. We did receive a lot of feedback, a lot of positive feedback from our first episode of this. We really enjoy doing it, and we appreciate each and every one of you. For those who may not have been aware, there is very much a video component to this. So if you are watching it on or listening to it on YouTube or Spotify, you can watch along. Please check out our Instagram where we have a lot of cool content at Turn Giants. You can get more information at turngiants.com, and our YouTube, if you weren't already following, is at Turn Giants Official. I think that covered everything. So then, so long, everyone. And until next time, as always, Forza Juve.